So a strong dollar, as we know, is a wrecking ball because it's tightening financial conditions. It's tightening financial conditions. So that correction was the strength of the dollar. So money supply is increasing, but it was being offset even more so by that recent spike in the dollar, which I think is reversing now. I think Scott Bessent being put into the Treasury is likely to believe in a weaker dollar, likely to believe in lower rates.
So you think that the dollar probably topped just after the elections because of Trump's talks of tariffs and making America stronger and everything else. But tell us why you think that Scott coming into the Treasury would probably bring...
Firstly, 2016 Trump, exactly the same happened. The dollar went up and rates went up. January, they all reversed. And they continued down all of that period. So we need to go back to 2016.
That's over here.
So there you go. Right. So what happened is 2016, we had that spike. Then it came back down for the rest of 16 and then eventually spiked later from 18 onwards. So, that was perfect. Very similar kind of setup. Not identical looking, but same idea. Scott Bessent, somebody I've known for 20 years, he was a macro hedge fund guy. It wasn't because of taxes at all. I was living in Spain.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're saying that the quality of life there is just amazing.
It's great. It's great. You're an hour from Miami, 3 hours from New York, direct flight to London, direct flight to the West Coast. You can get anywhere from here, and it's got almost no crime, super high quality restaurants, supermarkets, everything else. So your life it takes a lot of that stress and strain. You're in Cape Town. You've got brownouts every single day. You've got enormous amounts of crime. So you have to live in gated communities. And, there's those stresses around you don't exist here.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
I didn't realize you didn't move there for the taxes. It sounds like a crypto move or a wealth move to move there for taxes.
It's because I built this house and fell in love with the place. And then so I live in Grand Cayman mainly, but I'm over in Little Cayman today. But that was that. It's because I fell in love with the place. I thought I'll stay here for a bit. 11 years later, I'm still here.
It's amazing. It sounds amazing. And the house looks absolutely amazing. Let's talk a little bit about crypto and the Bitcoin cycle. So obviously Bitcoin's had an amazing run. Actually, before we started, I looked at the price and how much we had just moved up since the election. We're up
just going to deregulate this thing. And if you are a financial institution, you will tend to build on ETH or ETH layer 2s. And the reason being, it's like IBM or Microsoft. It's a broad, deep ecosystem. You don't get fired for doing it.
I think that's true, but I also think that the ETH ETF flows, I think the ETH ETF hasn't had much love. And I think the fund managers are looking at this and going, look, Bitcoin's up 50% since the election. ETH is not up 50% since the election. ETH is up a lot less since the election. And I remember when I came into crypto and I thought I'd missed Bitcoin. It was like Bitcoin had just rallied from 500 to 1,000. I was like, okay, I've missed Bitcoin. I should get into ETH. And then it's, like $9, we started buying ETH because we didn't even know what it was. We just said, well, it's just crypto and it's not Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's had a run. And I'm getting the same vibes now. Like I'm looking at ETH and I'm going, as a layman, you look at this and you go, look, I don't really know what Bitcoin is and what ETH is. I don't really know the difference. They're both cryptos. One's the big one, one's a slightly smaller one. It looks like ETH may actually have a run.
Yeah, I don't disagree. There's that weird psychology that goes on. It's also, I think, there is going to be fundamental flows behind it as well. I think ETH overbuilt capacity or block space for where we are currently.
Based on that thesis, Solana's had an amazing run against ETH. I've got the Sol ETH chart open. Yeah, I was looking at it earlier. Go
to the weekly one of that or something. I still think the Sol ETH chart looks like it probably continues. I think it probably continues. That breakout of that basing pattern suggests it goes quite a bit further. So I'm not sure ETH will outperform Sol, but I'm pretty sure from now on, ETH outperforms Bitcoin. Cast your mind back to 2020.
Yes,
it was
I remember.
November 2020 that ETH really started outperforming Bitcoin.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that well. So you think that ETH outperforms Bitcoin, but Sol outperforms ETH, and the Sol ETH chart continues to run.
Yeah, and I think SUI outperforms Sol. So that's my risk stack. So the least risky Bitcoin starts to underperform. Now we're getting to alt season as Bitcoin dominance falls. ETH will do better, but Solana is earlier in the adoption curve, so it does better. Sui is earlier than the adoption curve and riskier, so it does better. Generally, how I think about it.
And what do you think happens on Solana after memes, or do you think it's too soon to be talking about after memes? Because I mean, look, there is a lot of good stuff happening on Solana. Like there's drift derivatives, Jito with the MEV and the staking and everything else. But I mean, you could argue that right now the transaction count and the fun is being on Solana is being.
Yeah. And if you look at that on a weekly chart now, if you change it to the weekly and then look at that flag, it's actually broken out.
It's breaking.
So
I suppose,
move the trend line down. Yeah. Move the trend line down to the other high,
which is that high. Yeah. It's just broken out on the weekly. Okay, I see the point. So you
see my point, right?
I see your point. So at 58 billion, we should probably be adding to this position as opposed to cutting this position.
Yeah, I've been long for a while just on this thesis, but this chart is something I can't get my head around.
Yeah, you've blown my mind. Yeah.
Outcome that the strongest currency would be Doge. I mean, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard.
That is crazy. I must say, I've obviously watched the chart and I've been around, but I've never had that kind of perspective, which has been like, holy shit, look at that. What else? What else is piquing your attention at the moment? So I know you're close to Sui. I know you're close to Solana. I know you're an ETH man and a Bitcoin man, and I know you in this part of the cycle you always tend to move down the risk curve. I remember in the last cycle, this is where you started moving really down the risk curve.
So look at the Sui Solana cross.
Sui Solana
killer chart. Yeah,
Sui Sol. Okay, wait. I'd have to go.
Now, other people will have other bets versus mine, which is Sui. It might be Say. It might be whatever. Monad could rip when it comes out. Whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying you have to follow my advice, but that's how I see the risk curve. Now I wouldn't go all in, but I would just reallocate a bit more because really what we're trying to do here is we are trying to outperform. That's why we're active. If we weren't, we'd just buy Bitcoin and go to the beach and not do anything.
So do you look at narratives, or do you just look down the risk curve? When you look down the risk curve, do you ever look and say, okay, I want exposure to AI in crypto, or I want exposure to?
I did that last cycle. I just had a wallet of shame of a bunch of shit that I was left with that I didn't care about. I tried the balanced portfolio. I want a bit of DeFi and a bit of gaming and a bit of metaverse, and a bit of that. It was all a waste of time. Because there is a limited amount of attention and a limited amount of capital. And what you find is there's 3 to 5 horses that bolt out of the gate that are big enough. Sure, somebody else will find something much smaller and make.
Would you play the attention game? Would you play the attention game?
No, I wouldn't. It's not for me. It's not for me. But I understand why people do.
Tell me why. What happens is. Tell me why you didn't. Tell me why you didn't. You don't play hot potato. Why you don't play the attention game? If it's so obvious.
Because you don't know how long the attention lasts. Right? That's the meme game, which is why I only play small amounts in memes, because you just don't know when the attention stops and goes somewhere else. Suddenly these things plummet. Right? So the attention game is everything. And I find that more difficult than something with fundamental proof. Like Sui's pretty easy because you can see the on-chain activity building, you can see the number of devs building. It's like there's metrics that you can use that don't apply to many other things. To Doge, for example. Apart from Doge nodes have been exploding, and I don't really understand what now. Stick 3 of it into one of these kind of bigger tokens that can still do a 10x from here. So that will be 30 grand.
Yes.
And then play in the meme coin casino, lose some money, maybe make some money, but get the experience. But then you've got that balance where you can't fuck the thing up, because 30 grand is a lot of money to somebody who's got 5.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. They don't see it because they think, I want to get $1 million now because I saw a bloke on Twitter who made $1 million. You are definitely going to fuck it up if you do that.
Yeah, I mean,
those people on Twitter never say, I've lost my 5 grand stake. I've lost my 10 grand. They never say that. You only hear the winners.
So, and let me ask you about trading versus holding. It seems to me like you're much more of a holder. You're not trading in and out of positions. You're taking positions and you're holding those positions throughout the whole cycle. Is that because you're a bad trader, or